Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
Hey guys, this is your co-host Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror-loving cinephile. I'm just your average pun-making swearwolf that loves to explore the spookier things in life.
I'm your co-host John Thomas, paranormal investigator, super smartass, and film lover extraordinaire.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all of our paranormal pals out there? Today, we have one of our favorite guests returning, Lulu the woo-woo guru. That's right. Louise is going to be joining us and talking about a recent paranormal investigation she went on, and also anything else that comes up. We can't wait to hear all about it.
But first, a word from our network sponsor.
Are you looking for more awesome podcasts? Head on over to withoutyourhead.com for access to the Without Your Head podcast network, where you'll find a variety of podcasts sure to keep you entertained and coming back for more. Yeah. All right, you want to bring us back? I love the whoop whoop.
Oh, I love your disclaimer, and also anything else that comes up.
Because we go all over the board, and I love it. This is like one of my favorite conversations is when we have you on, because it's just everywhere. And
yes.
I'm about it. I'm here for it.
Tangents. We'll start with Bilsington Priory, and then I'm sure the tangents will happen. I already know the tangent I'm about to go off on. I really want to talk about Bilsington Priory as well. I want to talk about haunted Kent. Haunted UK is one thing. The UK is notorious for being haunted. You know, we've got a lot of history, and like when I watch a lot of like paranormal investigation shows, you know, ghost hunting shows and stuff. And when these shows are in America, something that strikes me is that people often say, wow, you know, this house or this property is old, so there's loads of activity. It was built in 1917, and I'm like, shit, I live near a church from the 1100s. Like, so I find it, you know, quite wild. It's wild, you know, it's wild that a lot of the places in the UK are historically, you know, they might have been renovated over the centuries, but actually originally, you know, the foundations were from like the frickin' 12th century or more so than that. I mean, we've got Saxon, Norman, you know, I don't even know what period of time half this shit comes from. But it fascinates me. So when we talk about haunted UK is, we have a lot of activity. And then Kent, particularly where I live in the southeast of the UK, we've got a lot of what I would call notorious places, and Pluckley, which is about a 20-minute drive from where I live, is touted as the UK's most haunted village. And yeah, in fact, I'm taking my friend who's staying with me. We're going there on Monday evening, because you can't come to my neck of the woods and not be taken to Pluckley.
Yeah, and hopefully you get there, because I know you said sometimes there's like random road misdirections that happen where it's like, you're just not going to Pluckley today.
It's really odd. And I'm very skeptical about that. I think, no, you just took a wrong turn. Like, come on, don't be a dick. But these are people that, you know, the last time that happened, it was my mum, who I call her Auntie Jackie. She's a woman I've known. She's known me since I was just a twinkle in my dad's eye, so to speak. And she knows all of the villages around Ashford like the back of her hand. You know, she knows it. And when we were driving, she just kept going the wrong way, but it wasn't the wrong way. And then we came out the same turning, and she was like, "Well, this isn't what it looked like last time." And I was like, "No, it isn't." It was it's really strange, and there is that weird sort of it's not, I don't know what you would call it, a myth or whatever, that there are times when if Pluckley doesn't want you there, then Pluckley hides itself from you. Obviously, as somebody who loves to believe in all of this sort of stuff, I'm like, ooh. But as a natural-born skeptic, I'm like, no, you just took a wrong turn in, you know, because it's a country road. However, it's not that difficult to get lost in our surrounding villages. There's every road leads to a road that's near a main road. It's not, you don't, you know, the UK is very small and Kent is very small in comparison to like America or Australia, where you might be suddenly like, shit, I'm in the bush. Like, what the hell do I do here? Like, we don't get that here. It's like, you can always see light pollution somewhere. Like, you always know, like, oh, I can see a street lamp, therefore I know that as the crow flies, I can get there, kind of thing. But there are weird things like that. But the one that we went to a couple of weeks ago, which was Bilsington Priory, is quite notorious for certain types of hauntings. So it's like what I would call residual hauntings. So you would see people see the monks there because it used to be a monastery. So people see the monks, and of course there's like, I don't know, a grey lady and a whatever. There's always a grey lady everywhere, isn't there? But people do report seeing the same kind of entities time and time again. So when I went, I was assuming that these, what I may or may not see, would be like an imprint, more so than what I would call an intelligent haunting, like an imprint, like a residual energy, something that you see like playing out, or a recording, you know, like stones or water or whatever, like a recording of a happening that I would perhaps see in front of my eyes played out. But actually what happened was way weirder. Woo!
Woo! Nice segue. You said you were a twinkle in your dad's eye, and I prefer the phrase tingle in the loins. So she's like, ew.
I was about to take a drink too. I'm glad I didn't, because my computer would be all, yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it.
That's disgusting. I was gunning myself out of my nutsack at that point in time. No, thank you.
Well, I didn't say that.
I was doing up to shoot and, you know, get my mum right in the oven.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you start a show. Welcome back, Louise.
I've teared up at least 3 times from laughing. And we just started. We start with the bang.
I worry at how much you have to edit out.
Not much.
Not a lot,
really.
to be honest with you. We love it.
No.
We love it all.
That concerns me somewhat.
Yeah. People love it. Our listeners love it.
I was gonna say, if we laugh, we know somebody else is gonna. So yeah.
As long as it's entertaining for somebody.
Yeah, I told you when I was editing last time, like I texted you and I was just like, I can't stop laughing. Like, I'm replaying this conversation, and when you're in the moment, you're just having a good time, but listening to it afterwards, it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot stop laughing. This is hilarious. We are out of control, and I love it.
I can't wait to hear it, because I'm like, no, I literally can't remember at all, because I don't sort of plan in advance. The way that I like to be is just, I like to be who I am when I am, and in the moment with who I'm with, because I haven't kind of made bullet point notes or anything like that. I think, I don't even know I can't remember what I said 3 minutes ago, let alone, a couple of months ago. So I'm really looking forward to listening to it, because I think, I know I'm going to facepalm a lot and be like, oh, Louise, you dickhead, what the hell are you talking about? That's fine. If it's funny, it's funny. Like, it's not a problem. It's just, I'm quite fascinated and intrigued and curious to know what the hell I was talking about at that point in time.
All good things.
And you both are so easy to talk to. Like, if we, it's so much easier to talk to people that you have got an immediate rapport with. So you clearly both make it easy for people to just be themselves around you. So that's your gift to your guests, really, I think.
Thank you. That's
You're welcome.
So nice.
Yeah, I'd just like to throw something at you to make you feel awkward.
You know me already. You're like, she gets awkward with compliments. I'm like, yeah, I'm turning red.
She does. Yep.
Moving on.
I know her face is actually as red as her shirt right now.
I know, I'm turning red. So before I lose the thought, because my brain will totally jump like 50 different directions. You had mentioned some of them being residuals and some of them being intellectual hauntings. And I oftentimes wonder, especially like in America, I know some of our buildings are not that old. that have like a super strong haunting urban legend that surrounds them. You know, people are seeing similar things. Over time, the hauntings seem to dissipate or just fade away, and less people report experiencing things, even though more and more people are visiting. And we
Yeah.
talked about that on a previous episode where I wonder if, like, from the first haunting, from the first inciting event that caused the haunting, does that energy, is it like a starburst that just like it's boom and we're here and we're haunted, but over time that energy kind of, whether it's absorbed by the earth or just dissipates out, that haunting becomes less frequent. But it sounds like some of the places in the UK, which are much older, like their haunting still stays pretty prevalent, right, over time.
That's interesting. That's a really interesting concept, actually, because I do think if we think about it in terms of like a residual energy, so like an imprint or something that's kind of like a recording that's just playing out. I suppose that we would all sort of liken it to a cassette tape, if you're that old, which I am, or a record, you know, vinyl or something. Like when, you know, how long does something play before it kind of
Wears out.
wears out, I suppose. Yeah. So how long does that happen? I mean, there's loads of schools of thought on all of these different sort of things. There's a lot of people that would say, well, if you're, you know, bringing energy, then these things can kind of draw on that energy. But I personally don't think that if it is an imprint, if it's a recording, it's not intelligent, it's just a replay of what went on, then I don't necessarily think that bringing energy to it will necessarily contribute to it like remaining for longer or maintaining it or whatever. I think that you have to bring in the element of human psychology. So of course, if you go somewhere with an expectation, if there's a reported sightings of XYZ, then you're, you know, no matter whether you like to think it or not, no matter how rational and reasonable you think you are as a person, you're going to be subconsciously influenced by somebody else saying, this is what's been seen. And, you know, you might be like, well, yeah, well, I'm a skeptic. But equally, if you catch something out the corner of your eye, your brain does things to you that you can't explain or understand. You'd be foolish if you thought it didn't. Like, the mind is a freaking minefield, isn't it? So you have to add that into the equation. So yeah, I do find it interesting, and I suppose in the same regard, there's the other question, which is, why do we always see like Victorian ghosts, and why does the devil speak in Latin? Why are we not seeing somebody who, you know, died in 1983 suddenly showing up in their leg warmers or whatever? We never see that, do we? We always see like the white lady in a high collared dress looking very somber doing this shit. Like, well, what about, like, you know, the rest of history? Why don't I see people wandering around in flares, you know, or bell bottoms, or like, you know, people with like really cool afros and stuff like that? Like, I don't see ghosts like that, you know, but these people have died as well. Is there like a time that you're allowed to come back and haunt people, or like, is there a time frame on it? Or so I do think that a lot of it is to do with who we are as human beings. We don't, you know, we want to see things in a certain way. We will, you know, what's it called, paranoia with, you know, making faces and figures and things like that. Like, we've got that, and also voices and stuff like that. And I think it's our duty, if we really want to know what's going on, it's our duty to be as skeptical as humanly possible whilst remaining open-minded and saying, it could be this, it could be that, it's likely the fact that I'm a human being and my brain's going woo at me, but equally that was weird and fucked up, so I'm kind of like, oh yeah, but it might have been like a bit ghostly. So it's having that joy and curiosity. It's also, to get a bit deep, it's I don't think it's about knowing the truth. I think that we can choose our own truths and our beliefs and everything else. I think that's a choice. It's not about understanding the ultimate truth. It's about maintaining that curiosity and understanding that we're never going to fucking know. So how about we stop trying to know and prove it to each other? And how about we just live in this lovely, beautiful world of mystery and it's all an enigma and oh my god, I'd love to know but I don't know, and that to me is more exciting. I don't know, none of us are ever going to know. We're not going to know. If we knew, wouldn't it be, if somebody like actually found actual real evidence of the paranormal, it'd be front page news. We would suddenly, the whole world would change, our existence as a society would change. We would know what happens after we die, right? That hasn't happened yet. So we have to remain skeptical to a degree, but we can embrace the fact that we don't know what goes on and everything else. So, and it's playful and it's curious and it's interesting, it's intriguing, it's exciting, and you can choose to believe what you want. And I know my experiences, but equally I'm like, yeah, but it could have been this, but I'm like, no, but it definitely wasn't, because that shit was fucking real, you know. And I like to live in the beauty of the enigma, I suppose. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you made a really good point about the Victorian ghosts. Why do we only see ghosts from a specific era?
I was going to say, it's scarier or creepier, I would think, to go back that far, because if you're talking to somebody, oh, I saw somebody in, with the afro and the bell bottoms, it's not as freaky, they're not going to scare you as much. Maybe they just want to come and do some disco dancing. I don't know, but yeah.
You're right. We only ever see that we only, because I always think this, like, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody here, but so I don't believe in like God as a one God type thing. I don't put any weight in like Abrahamic religions, let's say. And then when people talk about the devil and like demonology and stuff, I'm like, why did he just stop at Latin? Because I'm like, if it's the devil, right? So the devil's been around since the birth of the universe. He's been through several different languages. And then he just went, yeah, no, I like Latin, actually. Well, okay, that makes no sense to me. It seems peculiar. And the other thing is, if you think like, because my old cat is still in my house. I've got friends that have seen her. My friend who's staying with me, the first night she stayed, my cat, who is not of this realm anymore, let's say, has gone and, got on the bed with her and everything else. And I think, but what about, like, no one sees dinosaur ghosts, do they? Like, no one sees, like, you don't see, like, a woolly mammoth, like the ghost of a woolly mammoth walk past your door. You don't see, like, cavemen hunkering down. No one's got it. So we have to examine exactly what it is that we have to, I suppose, take responsibility for our impact on what it is that we are experiencing, because I think that a lot of what we experience is driven and manifested by who we are and what we're doing. So I'm not going to deny the fact that I have experiences regularly and I've had things happen in my world that are freaking peculiar, but I have to admit that and I have to take at least partial responsibility for having manifested those things into my world. Because otherwise, if the spirits of everything that ever frickin' existed were wandering around, I mean, it would be bloody busy, wouldn't it? We'd have frickin' T-Rexes and woolly mammoths and bloody Neanderthals wandering around. I'd be like, oh, what are you doing? This was once a cave, apparently. And we'd have people wandering around at the bottom of the sea because the sea levels have risen since the last frickin' ice age and mass extinction event. Why haven't we, so I suppose the question is, like, what makes a residual haunting? What makes an intelligent haunting? And how much are we, as, let's say, living people, how much are we influencing what is going on around us? So that's a philosophical one.
Right. Well, like with the dinosaurs and stuff, going back to what Ashley was saying with the fading away, I mean, maybe people back then, maybe like the ancient Egyptians, did see dinosaurs or something else walking around and not know what they were.
Do you think there's like a time limit on?
Yeah, and then just as the energy faded away and more energy took its place, maybe that's just why we're not seeing those anymore.
Yeah, that's quite cool, because so I suppose then that makes it like a cyclical kind of energy that is experienced with people, and it has let's say an expiry date. So it can be maybe 1,000 years that you're only going to see things 1,000 years ago, and it's going to keep it, cycling and expiring the further. So perhaps in 100 years' time, people are going to see people from the frickin' 70s, and they're going to be like, wow, that guy looks really cool. Look at that tank top. Look at those roller skates. You know, like what a dude with his boombox or whatever, like frickin' Fresh Prince of Bel-Air style is. Yeah, do you see? Yeah, no, but actually that makes sense to me. Like I've never thought about it like that. And
can you imagine though, in the year 3000, somebody's gonna get the spirit of Britney going, "It's Britney, bitch," like, and they're like, "What the fuck is this?"
Oh, do you know what? Our generation is going to create really crap ghosts. I've told everyone to stay in touch with me.
Crap ghosts.
Yeah, I'm going to. I saw this thing online the other day that this old lady, when she died, before she knew she was on her way out, and she sent everyone little invitations that they opened that said "stay in touch," and there was like a little Ouija board.
Oh my god, that's hilarious!
I saw that too. That's great.
That would be something you would do.
Yeah.
I'm doing that.
Do stay in touch. A little Ouija board. Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah, because you know what I think of it as? I think of it like kind of like we're on Earth, right? And we see stars from a million miles away, and the energy's so bright that we still see them, even though chances are they're not there anymore, right? And it takes a while before that last piece of energy of light gets to us, where we see the supernova and it's gone and it's no longer there. That takes a really long time to reach us. And so part of me wonders if there's something similar with people. If we're like little we're little stars of energy. We're bundles of energy.
Well, that's what we are, energy.
So when we go, this energy bursts out. And I wonder if some energies do leave those echoes or those recordings that take a while to fade out.
I think that's a really beautiful way of looking at it and a beautiful way of explaining it. It's something that I've not really considered until this conversation, to be perfectly honest. Like, as much as I kind of live in the world of, like I said in the last time we spoke, like I consider spirit as living next door. That's next door. I've never really sort of thought about it in too much depth. Apart, it's crossed my mind, but I haven't really kind of entered into the let's try and explain this type. So that would explain the recordings. But then if we talk about kind of intelligent spirits, which is, I'm fascinated by, that's when these sorts of theories start to kind of fall down a little bit.
No, I think they're like the black holes. So they do the reverse.
Quantum physics kind of work. Yeah, I'm with you.
Like they were stars too, but versus bursting the energy out, they're sucking it in. And so they're able to stay.
And then there's will and intent and cause and, a lot to be said for like why. Because that's the thing, like in my house, so, in my house, I've got my chap who lives with me and he makes himself known to people as soon as they get here. And so I think actually you would consider him a poltergeist because he does move things and he does make noises and, it's regular, but it's not frequent, let's say, because I think that he's probably, I would say gathering energy. He's literally gone, hello. And I'm like, hello. And then I'm like, how can I help? I don't really know what to fucking say. And I know it's going to take me a month for him to go, mate, okay, write it down or something. Write it on the bathroom mirror. Be weird about it. It's cool.
It.
Hi, Lou. Hi. Question mark. But in Bilsington, what I found in Bilsington Priory. So this is why I really wanted to talk to you about it. Well, obviously we planned this beforehand, but since then I'm like, there's quite a lot to unpack. So we go in and there's number one, there's 30 of us. That pissed me right off. We were told it was going to be intimate, 30 people. But 3 people that are leading the group. So 3 groups of 10 people. This priory is old as fuck. So I don't know, 1100, something like that. And so the first guy that my group of 18, yes, of course, we went up to one of the top floors and we had a guy who was a apparently a medium, and he's like, there's a man in here, his name's Thomas, and he's a soldier, and blah 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 blah. We're all standing in a circle holding hands. I'm thinking, I've got a cold, I don't, sorry, I've got a cold, you're gonna get it now, you're gonna get it now. And then he's like, I don't know, he's just saying all this stuff, and I was thinking, well, we don't know that what you're telling us is true. He was also quite patronising in the respect of saying, we're going to do like a protection circle, so you will need to imagine this. And I thought, do you think that none of us have done this before, mate? Because, you're trying to butter my bread and it's already fucking buttered. So I was like, all right, yeah, no, I'm shutting up. I'm not saying shit because I'm not going to be that rude. However, if you piss me off, I will say something. And then he was like, well, and he's saying to the woman, coincidentally, my auntie standing next to him, and she fucking sees people, like actual crowds of people. Like, she thinks that she's nuts because she sometimes can't distinguish between spirit and like earthly people. Like, and that freaks me out. And she's always saying to me, am I mental? And I'm like, maybe, yeah, I don't know. No, I don't. I always reassure her. I'm joking. But so this guy is going on. They're holding hands, and then their hands start moving, and they're basically, it was like they're doing frickin' swing dance in the middle of the room. And I'm going like, don't break hands because it's dangerous. And I'm like, it ain't. And he's like, this is for your own safety. And I was thinking, this is within the first half an hour of being there, and I'm thinking, what is this deal? It's not unsafe to break hands if you're in a circle. It's these nonsense rules that people are putting in place. Anyway, so this Thomas, who apparently was with us, who was a soldier and this, he had his whole bloody life story. I was like, yeah, it's convenient. And he just kept doing things that were only really in relation to one or two people within the group. So my friend Alice, she's one of my best friends, and her husband Alex, and Alex is an absolute skeptic. He was next. He looks like Rasputin, like he's really tall, big beard, like he is, and he's just standing there quietly. And then Alice's best friend Ed, a gay guy, next to me, and I've got the only two other men in the room holding hands because I'm trusted, because I'm lovely. Because they were doing stuff that was absolutely not involving everyone, Alex was like, right, all right then, if Thomas is here, I'd like you to do something that we can all see and appreciate, something that happens for all of us. So whether that's something that we all feel or whether that's something we all see, like, have you got the ability to do that? And the guy's like, well, no, he doesn't, his energy, fuck's sake, right? So that was frustrating. And Alex is a skeptic, but I believe he was doing the right thing in saying that. We did have some weird experiences. There's a woman that was there who, weirdly, I went to school with, and her Fitbit, she was wearing a Fitbit, and she broke the circle.
Uh-oh.
Because she went, what the fuck? Because her whole arm was vibrating, and it went up to, I think it was 166. And the guy was like, don't leave the circle! And she was like, fucking, I've been told off. So she joined hands. But she turned around to her friend and was like, he's like registering 166, like heartbeat. And I was like, it's like a HIIT workout. And she wasn't even nervous. She was chill.
At that heart rate, she should be breathing pretty hard.
Right. And about 5 minutes later, it did the same thing. Now, that to me is more compelling than people fannying around doing the thing, going with their hands, because that's what people do. You can lead people into doing that. That's why table tipping is bollocks. That's why Ouija boards are often bollocks, because you have to allow for the fact that people become part of it themselves subconsciously without realizing, and then they attribute, paranormal behavior to actual normal human ways of being. So that was, that was the first hour, and I was like, I've paid money for this. This sucks. That was the first hour. Second hour was equipment time. So I was like, dude's got a spirit box. I was like, can I have your spirit box, please? He's like, yes. I was like, brilliant. So I ran straight up to the top of the building, which is, it's horrifying. It's like this weird attic space where the beams are at your head level kind of thing. Because I'm really, really cool, like a few people followed me. So so I didn't get to spend any time alone up there. But we had an ovulus and there were some words coming out, and so my friend's husband was sort of standing maybe 3 foot away from me, and then Ed was standing probably about 2 foot away on the other side, and then I had Alice and Jackie behind, like further back in the room. And the only thing, and this happens to me quite a lot, the only thing is we're standing there, I was watching what the words coming up on the ovulus, and then I felt Alex bend down to me and go, oh, da, 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 in my ear. And it sounded like he was being a bitch about something. He was like, oh, da, 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 da. Like, and I just went, what? And when I went, what? He was still 3 foot away. And he went, what? And I went, what? What did you say? And he went, oh, I was breathing. I was like, no, you just said to me, oh, nah, nah, nah. And he went, I don't fucking move, Louise. And it was like he was annoyed. And I was like, you definitely just said to me, nah, 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 and I didn't hear what you said. And he was like, I swear to you, I haven't fucking moved. And I was like, whoa! Personal experience, not shared by the group. Can't confirm, right? So that's frustrating. Again, can't confirm. But for me, I was like, rrr. So that was really cool. Third group, downstairs. This was my favourite time. There were 2 sets of people there was 1 set of people doing the Ouija board, 1 set of people doing table tipping. I just sat there like, nah, I'm not doing it because I think it's bollocks. And behind the bar, it sounded like somebody was at work behind the bar and in the kitchen area. And you could hear footsteps, you could hear voices, I could hear, it's a weird thing to say, but like like a bottle top. Mm-hmm. You know, like noises of a bottle top, and then low male conversation. And I was like, did you hear that? And they're like, yeah. And then we had this broom that we had this weird wooden clanking noise. And the woman who was running it was like, oh, that's the fucking broom again. She's like, that's happened about 4 or 5 times. So they drew a line next to the broom on the wall, which we'll probably get told off for, with a biro. And then we carried on, and then we heard the again, and it had moved. So we didn't witness it moving, but we heard it moving, and it had moved away from the line, and no one was there. And then the story is that anyone that works there in the kitchen and bar area always says, like, it's like even if you're working on your own, it's like somebody else is there working with you. There's always the noises going on of like somebody just going about their business. And then just as the woman, her name's Becky, just as she was about to turn the light on, I heard, help. And I went, oh, and looked at this woman who was sitting next to me, and she went, and I went, did you just hear? And she went, help. I was like, fucking yes. And I went, Becky, did you say help? And she's like, what? No. And I went around the room, did you say help? Did you say help? And it wasn't like help. It was just help. It sounded silly almost. And then kind of that was that. So all in all, it was an entirely disappointing situation because there was nothing that was verifiable because it was very, very personal to each person individually, and a whole heap of it could be put down to you mishearing things or misjudging things or whatever. It wasn't worth 40 quid, I'll tell you that much.
You know what's hard for me with places that highlight and monetize on paranormal experiences and investigations is that if something does happen, I oftentimes wonder, was it orchestrated to keep people coming back so that they go and say, yes, I experienced this? With the personal experiences, I almost like that better because it's a lot harder to orchestrate something like that. Like having someone in your ear say something and not be there. Like that's really like, I can't even think how someone would, manufacture that.
That's me. I didn't just hear him in my ear. I felt Alex. Mm-hmm. It was clear to me what had happened. Alex had said to me, oh, no. Almost as if he was saying, oh, fucking hell, Lou, like, this is bullshit. Or, like, he was, but I felt him. I could, like, when you can feel somebody next to you and stuff, the whole thing. And that's why I went, what? Because I didn't hear him. What? The
ghost was telling you that. This is bullshit.
It was so funny. He was like, what? I was like, what? And he was like, what? And I was like, huh? It was weird. But, I mean, for these places in the UK, they don't run their own events. So you have, like let's say, paranormal investigation companies or ghost hunting tours or whatever, who will pay the venue and then, you know, recoup their costs by selling the tickets. The venue's got no real, they're not really invested in that, because actually a lot of these places you could just rock up at night, no one's there to tell you not to go. Like a lot of the churches I go to are open all the time, so I could pay money to go on an investigation there, or I could just drive there myself at 9 p.m. and walk in and do it. So they're not really, I'm sure they're, I mean, of course they're making money from it, but they're not really kind of like trying to pull people in for that reason. It's more so the company that's kind of doing it. But one of the women that I was speaking to, weirdly, I've known her for years. I was just like, I looked at her, I was like, I know you. She's like, I know you. And we figured out where we knew each other from. And she said, actually, this is one of the least active places, like little bits, but not a lot. But she's gone to, it obviously goes regularly, because that's what she does for a living, to a lot of other places. And she said it's terrifying at certain places, but it also does depend on the group of people that you're with. And that's the thing that we all have to kind of recognise, I suppose. There was a woman outside at this thing at Bilsington just going on about, I lived in this house and the lights were doing this and the taps were doing this. And I thought, you just got dodgy connections. Like, it's an old house. Like, you know, you can't attribute everything. Because I'll tell you what it does is it undermines the reality of when things do happen. If you're the sort of person that says everything is paranormal, you're crying wolf. And then you're undermining things that do happen. And I have weird experiences in my house all the time. And I try to at least put 50% of them down to me just being silly or forgetting or imagining. A lot of it, I'm like, you know, and I think, no, be sensible, be rational, intellectualize it. I think there's a balance there. I think if we want to believe, but equally you have to err on the side of skepticism. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to take yourself seriously, let alone anyone else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too many people in one location at the same time can be distracting to things that actually
Right.
are or might be occurring. Because if you've got a room with 100 people, you're probably not going to hear the sounds behind the bar or the broom moving, things like that, or the help. Like, that's going to be really hard to hear anything like that going on, because there's so many damn people. And,
And it
you
could
know,
be you're hearing footsteps from upstairs, or
yeah,
so you have to, even if it didn't sound like it was coming from there, you have to then put that into the equation and say, but it might have been.
could have been,
Even if
yeah.
I don't think for 1 minute it was, I have to admit to myself that it might have been. So then it detracts from my experience, because I can't legitimize what it is that I've actually just experienced, because I have to err on the side of caution and say, but it could have been that. And that's what not upsets me, I'm not going to cry about it, but it fucking annoys me.
And I do think sometimes we draw in our hauntings, which probably can be frustrating to people who want the hauntings and they're like, why aren't there ghosts? And I do think that there are some people that are able to pull that in, even if they don't mean to. Every place it's like, how is every house you live in haunted? And it's like,
Mhm.
maybe it's not the house, maybe it's you.
You're right.
And and so I don't know, but
How legitimate do you think people are like that? Because the reason I ask is because I know people that are continually plagued by certain things happening, and I know I've been, you know, I have always had presences, let's say, around me. Only one was horrible, and we got rid of that one. But I feel like some people there's a constant, and I just think, like, you're bringing this on yourself. Sometimes, yeah, that's cool. Sometimes it's like, no, but you're actually putting yourself in the firing line. And also sometimes I think, like, it's just you and you're imagining it. So where do you kind of, how do you define the difference? How do you kind of navigate that?
I would like to learn how to not be on the firing line. I'm one of those people, and I don't enjoy it. And I think there was only like one house I've been in that it truly just felt fine. But then at the end of living there, weird shit started to happen. We had gone on a vacation, came back, and when we came back, you know how your house feels like you, right?
Mhm.
Like you walk in and it's like it feels like you, it feels like home. And I remember we had walked in, we had been on vacation, walked back in the house, and as soon as I walked in, I felt like I was walking into a stranger's house.
Yeah.
And I'm like, something's off. Something's just off. And I mentioned that, and they're just like, that's weird. And I'm like, I don't know how to explain that. This just doesn't feel like my house right now. And it's like, well, maybe it's because I've been on vacation, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like my energy is here. It doesn't feel like this feels like somebody else is imprinted on my home, if that makes sense. And I remember that night, I was in bed, and at midnight, we had one of those fans, overhead lights that has a remote control you can turn it on with.
Yeah.
So I went to bed, and at midnight, it like turned on. And it jolted me out of bed. And, it's like, well, it's a remote. It could be anything else triggering that, right?
Yeah.
The neighbors, anything else. So I was like, okay, if it happens the next night, I'll go check the window, right? Because I have to see if someone triggered it.
Yeah.
So for us, we didn't have neighbors in the back. So really, any remote that might be hitting us from a neighbor's, like in terms of like a garage door opener or something, because I know those can be pretty strong, I'd be able to see them because it's on the street.
Yeah.
And I remember the next night I was asleep, and at the same time, light went on. And by the way, I'd been living in this house for over a year. Never happened. And so now it's second night in a row after I've got a weird feeling. And so I'd like run to the window, and it's like I'm peeking out the blinds, nothing. And it's like,
Once
okay.
is weird, twice is a coincidence, 3 times is a pattern.
It happened that entire week, every night at the same time. And I was getting annoyed. I like took the batteries out of my remote to make sure it wasn't being triggered by that. It was like, what is going on? And that same like week, I had been laying down with my youngest. He was napping, and he was really young. I wasn't napping, and it had snowed. I remembered that there was like, it was snow, it was super cold. And sometimes you can hear wind blow through like the top
Yeah.
vents of the house. So,
Well, no, not here, but
well, here they have the little vents at the top. And so like that goes through like the crawl space at the top, or the
right.
little baby attics. And so you can usually hear the wind if it's like a cold, windy day.
Yeah.
So I remember a house I lived in used to, like, the thing would flap. It would hit hard. So it's
Yeah.
like almost like little shutters. So I remember hearing the sound of like crunching snow. Like you would hear someone walking
Yeah.
in snow, but like an adult. And I literally am laying there watching the ceiling because I can hear it tracking from one side, slow steps to the other. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense because it's so small. First of all, an adult wouldn't be able to fit, like standing up, walking across. It's not an animal because animals don't move that slow. And it sounds heavy. It doesn't sound like a raccoon or something's up there, which again, they shouldn't be able to get up there. It sounds like boots crunching in the snow
Well,
above me.
You have to, sorry to interject, you have to absolutely at times, for me, when I hear certain things in my house and outside, I know it's a person. And the first thing that happens in my head, well, the first thing that happens is shit, it's the zombie apocalypse, which is great.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I woke up once to like a chainsaw. You don't hear chainsaws much around my area, and I was like,
Zombies. You sound like me.
But the first thing, as a person who is, especially if you have a child, and so the first thing that's going to happen to you is you click into protect mode, and so you go, oh my god, that's a person, bang. And then when you recognize that actually that can't be a person, that's when you think animal, animal, mineral, vegetable, like, you
Exactly.
alternatives, and all of these thoughts happen in such quick succession that for me, I find it really difficult to track then what I've had to get through in order to come to a rational conclusion, which is I don't fucking know what it is, but equally, if it's not threatening, then I can just go, oh, I don't know what it is, but it's freaking me out, and I'll tell all my friends about it, and I might go on a podcast and talk about it. But but it's not a person, and and then aside, it could be paranormal, it might not, but I have also run through the rational explanations as well, and all I can tell you is I don't know what the fuck. And then that then becomes like the point of, if it sounds like a person and it ain't a person, that shit freaks me out. And I quite like it.
It did. And it freaked me out. And I remember I took out my phone and I was trying to record the sound because it was so loud. Like, it was so loud. I could hear it going across like boot steps. And it went back and forth a few times. And I'm like, that's not a fucking animal.
Did you say anything? I'd be like, oi, can you not? Stop now. Thank you. No, thank you.
I think the only thing I said out loud was, you don't have permission to be here, is the one thing I said.
That's a beautiful thing. So, like, in my world, being, witchy woo and everything else, the one thing that I genuinely believe is that those that have passed on, those that are living next door, like I like to say, they're just people. And if they're intelligent, I don't. Of course, there's like nasty bastard arsehole evil shit going on out there, but that's going to be few and far between, because it's the same in, like, let's say IRL. Do you know what I mean? So most of the time, like, if I was haunting people, I'd be like, wee, I'd just be trying to annoy them a little bit and have a laugh. And if they said, Louise, stop it, I don't want you to do this, I'd be like, all right, boring. But I'd respect their wishes. And I think, like, that's all it is just saying, no, thank you. I've said it 1,000 times. No, thank you. One of the reasons that when I was talking to this medium, who I wasn't really sure if I really believed him or not, but I said to him, I don't want to see, I don't like it. So I've just sort of said, no, thanks, I don't want to see you. You touch me. I can feel, like, I get touched. I can feel things and I hear things. That's the way in which people next door communicate with me. I don't want to see stuff because it freaks me out. So I've asked for that to not happen. I think that my wishes are being respected. Somebody else was saying, oh, but maybe as you get older, you'll want to see things. And I was like, I'm 40 years old. This is like, well, do I want to have children or not conversation. I didn't want them then. I don't want them now. So stop trying to tell me I'm going to want something as I get older. Don't undermine. I made my fucking decision, thank you. And the guy actually said to me, he said, well, that's what's weird. He said, I see people, and he said, I see them, and so I can only tell you about what they look like, where they're from, roughly how old they are. And he said, but I can't tell you anything about how they feel. I can't tell you why they're here. I can't hear them. He said, I can just see. And he said, and it's actually been a distraction for me as a medium that I can only see. And he said, so, but you're getting more insight because you can feel, you can hear, and he said, you can, I can see, but not with my eyes, if you get me. And he said, actually, that's, a much more insightful way. And I was like, I'd never thought about it like that, because I just thought I was like, in my mind, I'm just hiding behind a chair going, no, I don't want to see you. Go away. But I've also
cover your eyes.
Yeah, but I'm like that. But I'm inviting you to touch me, talk to me. That doesn't freak me out at all. Whereas other people, that freaks them out.
It's funny how you go through the thought process of when you are experiencing something, because that's exactly how it goes. It's so fast, but it's like, it really is a quick process of trying to eliminate the stuff that would be logical. And it's like, well, no, okay, it can't be that.
You don't sit and write notes on it. You don't sit in your head and go, is it this? No. Is it this? No. Like, when you have a conversation about it, it might last half an hour. But in your mind, in that moment, you flit through. And I think this is true.
It's like 15 seconds.
And it's a self-preservation thing. And so for me, I mean, obviously I don't have children, but I live alone. So, you know, my thought process has to be quite quick because I live on my own. So I have to think, holy fuck, like I live in the UK. I don't have any weapons. What am I going to, I'll lob them a bloody, the half drunk glass of beer at the side of my bed. Like I've got nothing. I can
Smash
kick
it.
'em.
Now it's a sharp weapon.
I'll throw a cat.
Throw a cat.
But I've got nobody other than myself in my house. But obviously, you know, I'm very important. Other than myself, I've got nobody else to protect. But when you're a mother, you go through an immediate, it's like, and as a father, I would assume as well, you go through like a very swift thought process of how real is this threat?
Mhm.
Like, what is this? Where is it? What is it? And how real of a threat is it? And then you've got to then, and then you have, because you have to act. You have to act. And what always throws me off is that in places that I've lived before, my mum and dad's house, for example, I've run up the stairs with a knife, thinking that there's somebody up there, like, you know, and I've gone up with a knife in my hand, going, "Yeah, fucking come out! I know you're here!" Like screaming and shouting. It took me years to realise it was just whoever, somebody else.
Charlie?
I don't know what. Charlie Baker, mate. Bloody Charlie Baker
Charlie
running
Baker.
around. Yeah, honestly, he's still there. Funnily enough, I've spoken to my parents and they're like, "Oh yeah, he
He's
still
still
wanders
hanging
about.
out.
What you want about?" He's so accepted, and I'm like, my mum and dad do not believe in any of this stuff, and they're still like, "Yeah, well, it's Charlie Baker though, isn't it?"
You know what I love is that you're like, I don't want to see him, but I'll let him touch me. And for me, that's a hell no. I don't like people that are alive touching me. I don't want spirits touching me.
I don't want a hug, but I get like a little
The pull, the hair pull.
hair
Oh.
tug, or I get like a prod, or it's really, really, it's a small touch, or it's like in my front room, something that a few times I've had is lying on the sofa and I get a cold blow across my toes and I'm like, "Ugh, foot fetish, dirty."
Dirty.
Yeah, dirty. And I just think you're a person. So I'm going to treat you like a person. If a man,
I will punch somebody then if they touch me, ghost or not.
if a real life man walked into my front room and blew on my toes, I'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing, you weirdo?" So I'm going to say, you're just a person next, like in the spirit world. So I'm going to be like, "Oh, what are you doing, fucking weirdo?"
Fucking weird.
That's not how to get my attention, is it? Like blow on my toes. Like that's not, don't do it for me, love.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
For the best part of your life, you're wandering around being a functional member of society. You're smart. You're, you know, doing all this stuff. It's not like you're living in a fantasy world that. It's like, no, you're bearing witness to something that other people aren't necessarily connected to, and I think like that's a hard place to be. That's a hard place to be.
Yeah.
But then you get people that are like so solidly in their rational, reasonable, whatever lives, and then they have like, I don't know, a near-death experience or one thing that they suddenly change their entire truth because they have seen something that is more than the truth that they're living, and one tiny split second is enough to change their entire reality. That to me speaks volumes, because I think, well, if it was just a bit like, well, I had a near-death experience, you know, I was like looking at a light at the end of the tunnel, but I just think that's how my brain went. No one does that. They're like, I fucking saw beyond. And then what happens? They suddenly become better people. They suddenly think about what matters. They suddenly go, shit, this reality is bollocks. I want to do this thing and this thing. And it's like, to me is insanely beautiful and wonderful and positive.
Yeah.
But if your ears go pop sometimes when you think you're sensing a presence, you just have to realise that sometimes your ears go pop without it. But most of the time, your ears go pop because you're experiencing what you're experiencing. And don't deny yourself that.
I'm not going to lie. That just totally reminded me of Buffy when she gets cramps every time the vampires are around. It's totally random.
Yep. I just watched that the other day, actually.
Okay, so now I'm going to put this to you because I know you've been looking. What we do in the shadows
I love that show. Okay, I
Right.
forgot I was supposed to come back to you with that one. So I watch so much of it. I still need to watch more. I've been watching them as I can.
You watch the film and then you watch the TV
Yep.
show.
Yes, those go together. Those are great. I absolutely love it.
Has John watched it? John, have you watched it?
I have, yeah. I'm not too far into the show, but I've definitely seen quite a few episodes.
I was like sending her messages as I was watching them. I absolutely love, what is his name? Nandor. I love Nandor.
I am Nandor, the relentless, because I never relent.
Yeah, he is so funny. By far, I think out of all the characters, he's probably my favorite. You fancy?
Yeah, fucking yeah. Oh my god, absolutely annihilate him. Yeah.
She get it. She'd annihilate it.
And he thinks he's relentless. Well.
Kayvon, if you're listening to this, she would like to be relentless on you.
And also Nadja. I mean, I'm not gay, but I would happily, I'll be like, well, she's fit.
We'll make it happen. It's that'll be one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how far I got. Like I've gotten pretty far. I really enjoyed the series.
Isn't it beautiful? I'm so glad that you. I knew you'd enjoy it anyway because both, like, you guys love. I think, like, even though we're worlds apart, there is an appreciation of the similar kind of thing. That, like, the humour that comes from this sort of horror, and it's because it's a big old spoof, but also it's a genuinely good storyline. Like, I'm invested in these people. Do you know what I mean? And like, it's so beautifully done. I think, like, there's a lot to be said for. I think historically, comedy horror has been just overly glorified and becomes very cheesy. And don't get me wrong, I love a cheesy, gory horror. But if you can marry up actual horror with actual comedy and an actual bit of human emotion, like real human emotion, and I think there's a real finesse to that is overlooked in a lot of films, and when you find it in a film, it's like, oh, you treasure it, don't you? Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, watch musicless music videos.
I'm gonna have a good time. All right, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time. I know you have friends visiting, so thank you for coming on to chat with us. You know we're gonna have you on again. You're gonna start being like our Friday fun. Our Friday fun regular.
British regular girl.
Proper British.
Yeah, that's a. I go out. So I'm going out on Monday to Pluckley again. Like, I go out, like, we can talk about my weird little haunted experiences all the time, and then we can just chew the cud about all the cool things that are going on in the world. I feel like that's our MO.
Let's do it. Let's just start doing it. We'll schedule, like, see how often we can do the Friday thing, because I would love that. It's going to be Fridays with Lulu the Guru. Woo Woo Guru.
Yes! I'm so up for that. And we'll do some video ones as well when I don't look like shit.
We'll call it our Freaky Friday.
Freaky Friday.
Freaky Friday. I'm loving this. We'll get it going.
I'm up for it.
All right, John.
All right. Thank you again, Lou, for coming on. Always a pleasure. Always. And thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of 3Haunted Podcast with your host. I'm John Thomas.
I am Ashley Lunar Goddess. And we have Lulu.
Oh, Woo Gary from Britain.
Woo
Woo! Oh, wow. That was just weird. But it worked. If you haven't done so already, please like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media. You don't want to miss one crazy moment.
You don't. Don't be a dick. Don't miss nothing.
Until next time.